Hi, everyone. This is the Irving Planning Board meeting for December 17th. This will be recorded in accordance with Governor Baker's directive, and we're going to be getting started in a few minutes. We're just waiting for some technical difficulties to be ironed out, and hopefully we'll be underway shortly. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm checking my email now for a link, an updated link. I haven't gotten anything yet.
Okay.
You're using your government email, is that right, Sunny? Or
I'm using just my phone. Oh, wait a minute. Oh shoot, maybe that's what the problem is. Well,
It should have been sent to both because I wasn't sure whether which email you were using because I know you had your phone problem. So you should have it.
Check my Gmail. Did you send it to son.hui.may@gmail.com?
The one that I just sent went there.
Okay. Oh. Update. No.
And at some point, if you've gotten your iPhone issues sorted out, we should get you reset up for your Irving email.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Let me see if I can find. It's not coming. Like the star thingy is going around, but come on, update. Just okay, I'm gonna try this. Let's see if this works. Yeah, see it said. Oh wait. How about that one? Does that work?
I don't know. We can't. It should pop up with a screen that says "Go to Webinar."
Okay, I can see you guys.
you can.
Oh, well, if you can see us, that's great.
Okay. So she needs to know how to turn her camera on.
There's a little camera, a green, yellow. I guess it would be red before you turn it on, and then it turns green once you touch. It looks like a movie camera. On mine, it's on the upper right, but I think could be anywhere. Is it on the bottom on some phones?
Yeah, I have a little blue that says screen, and it's blue. And I pressed it, but you guys can't see me still, right?
But that's okay. If you can you see the agenda that I'm sharing?
Let's see if I can move. Hold on. Oh yeah, yep, I can see the agenda.
Okay, so that's fine. We don't. As much as I would love to see your beautiful face, Sunhee, as long as you can see the maps and the agenda, I think we'll be okay.
Then we're good. All right. Oh, awesome. Okay, that works.
Okay.
I'm gonna figure this out. I am just not a tech person at all. It baffles me, but that's okay. I'm willing to learn, so that's good. That's good.
All right. Do we want to call the meeting to order then?
Okay.
Can everybody call their name off who's present? Let's do it in alphabetical order if we could, please. Sunhee.
Oh, yeah. Sunhee May, present.
Oh, Mike Schaefer, present.
Deb Smith, present.
Okay, so let's call a meeting to order at 7:13. And the first thing I'd like to do, if we could, is approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Sunhee, thank you. I see you sent out minutes from the 11th.
Yeah. And I just
Go-
did a quick,
Excuse me, could you repeat, please?
I was gonna say I just did a quick overview.
Okay. And I think we have one from the month before too, we have to do, October. So
Okay.
present were Mike Schaefer, Deborah Smith, Sunny May, guest Mariah Kurtz, Town of Irving Planning Assistant. Meeting started at 7:09. That would be via GoToWebinar, not
Okay.
Zoom.
Okay, I will change that.
And we had discussion about electronic signatures, and Mariah mentioned Adobe. And I think Brian will, and Jake probably have been working on some solutions to that. We can talk about later.
Okay.
The planning board mail, I did go in to sign it was something to do with the Boyden, and I had to go in and sign, and I talked to Brian. I misunderstood that he was going to have someone scan our mail, so there were about 12 pieces of mail in the mailbox from the past couple of months. Still don't know quite how we're going to handle that. Discussion of Mill Overlay District by Peggy Sloan. I was concerned about the renovators and the French King area in particular, and I was going to present it to the Conservation Commission, but they didn't have time to go over it during the meeting. Went over use table section 4 for residential uses, Central Village and Village Residential. Yep, viewed, reviewed, and discussed maps of zoned area. Then we talked about the IP mill, high-speed internet, water tower to be repainted, floodplain manager to be, okay. That one was the one I kind of want to clarify. Floodplain manager should be appointed, I believe, by the select board. I believe that, and then they were advertising for a planning board position. And
Yeah,
Brian,
I
I think, is going to update it.
So if you could just make the edit that the floodplain manager is to be selected and appointed, and there's a planning board member position that's being advertised for and will be appointed.
Okay.
So that's two different ones.
Okay, great. I was a little bit confused about that, how I wrote it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we covered a lot, and then the meeting tonight. So I'd make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are accepted as amended unanimously. I can't say unanimously, but anyhow, everybody. All right. The next thing on the agenda, is Brian on the line?
I think so. Brian, are you out there? In ether? He might be. I don't know.
Well, when I went in, I talked to Brian a little about what I remember the purpose, and I'd rather have him say it than me, but I'll try.
Oh, Brian's here.
Well, I think he just popped in.
Okay.
Sorry, it wouldn't let me
Hi,
unmute.
Brian.
Oh, sir.
Hi. Yeah, I just wondered if you could review, why the spot zoning, most of the, the purpose of why we're doing this overlay, and so everybody has the same background, if you don't mind.
No, that's perfectly fine. I think the request that we were trying to bring forward was meant to be proactive. Obviously, the town is currently in the process of redeveloping the former International Paper Mill site down on Paper Mill Road. And there's an interest from the select board on putting the property out for a light industrial reuse. Some individuals and some developers have shown interest in reusing part of the mill complex. The oldest structure, which is a 4-story building that was built in 1902. And we've heard a mix of potential housing units, office spaces, collaborative spaces. So through that process, our concern was that if our zoning wasn't amenable to sort of a mixed reuse, it could throw up some roadblocks for the development of the mill. Through that conversation, obviously we can't spot zone. So through that conversation, we started to think out all 3 mill areas that we currently have a potential for the need for redevelopment and reuse in the future. And is there a cohesive way to approach that work? And again, take a look at the zoning bylaw to allow within reason certain mixed reuses of those properties, and just try to be a little more forward thinking. So that was the initial request, was just to take a look at those areas and think about how the planning board would want to approach development in those areas. And of course, I believe Peggy and Mariah and you all have been working together to sort of explore what that would look like. And I guess I was calling it a mill overlay district, but I believe it's now being referred to more of a planned unit development zoning overlay. So again, so that was sort of the reason I wanted to bring that forward. I don't think that we have a one particular use that we're hoping to attract. I think the town has experienced the loss of economic development for about 2 decades now or more, and we have hopefully the opportunity to think out what you want for the future in terms of job creation and hopefully businesses staying in town, the potential for affordable housing, if any of these sites are appropriate for that. I think we have a few different options that may present themselves.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions for Brian? Could we, I guess, Mariah, you've got the map up and this is the original draft, I believe, that Peggy put together, and there were a few areas that I think we agreed we were going to change. One was across from the town hall. There was the Usher plant. We said I think that was in the original, and we want to get rid of that, right?
That looks like the wastewater plant.
It does, doesn't it?
Town hall
No,
would
actually-
be over here.
Right. What you're looking at right there is Irving Industries.
The wastewater plant, kind of. And okay, so
Yep.
it doesn't show the. We did get that out. That was in the original, wasn't it? I thought, or maybe we misunderstood.
I think we might have talked about it, but it didn't make it on this map. I think we discussed whether it made sense, and we had said that it didn't.
Okay, so in this one here, Peggy said we could. Keep it to just Central Village, and that would be my preference rather than going out into the rural residential area. We didn't realize at that time we could just have it zoned as, I think, 2 different zones. Is that right, Mariah? That was, there's
So
nothing
Deb and I
wrong
have
with that.
actually been working on this a lot with the map, and I think we would have to update the zoning map first, and then the overlay would go on top of that, obviously. So yes, so I think that the planned unit development overlay would only go as far back as the CV goes. That would be my recommendation.
That's good.
Correct.
Yeah, that would be fine with me. And then if we go to the other ones, I can show you where I got issues with them. The one by Renovators, if you want to go over by there. The Renovators itself, the buildings are in CV. And then those lots that go along the river were included in the PUD, and I don't recommend we include those in the PUD. If I don't think, Brian, you said the mill itself we may want to reuse, but the empty lots along the river, I don't think you have any. I wouldn't recommend it.
So I don't know if that's all one single parcel. It very well may be.
No, it's not. I've got a map. Maybe Mariah has it too, but we can pull up the parcel map. There's plenty of. I've got it up here on the.
Yep. It looks like
parcels.
Okay. I believe that they're probably all owned by the same owner. And they all were part of the mill property that laid out Irvingside. What I would imagine, you can see the remnants of the old canal, excuse me, the canal that used to power the mill. You can see that there. You're right. That's likely all flood zone, and part of the river watershed. So that may not make sense to have it extend that far. I would assume from the conservation standpoint, there's probably very little that can be done in that area. And I know that the town actually has a sewer easement that runs right through a section of that. So I think between those reasons, you probably would have very few uses that would extend out into that area. So if what you all were thinking was that the PUD overlay would be a little more closer to the CV area, that may make sense.
Well, that would be what I would recommend. I mean, for that area. This is the first time I've really talked to the group though about it. So,
just for anybody who's unfamiliar with the old mill that's down on Strachan and River Street, there's several mill facilities down there. Some have been aggregated into what people mostly call renovators, but there are a few other old mill buildings that are farther out. But I do think they're still in the CV zone.
they could be. Way across from the. I drove down there and looked at it. Yeah, there are some buildings right at the edge of the CV.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you can see how wet it is through most all of that.
Right.
It's got little grass growing everywhere. Trying to tell you. And then the other one was a French King, and to be truthful, I think Jackie and I were confused on this. We thought it included everything over to the railroad track, and Deb kind of pointed out it's only 1,000 feet from Route 2. So it's not a very big area, and most of that is developed. A lot of it has the solar fields in it, and then the restaurant and the police station.
Yeah.
I don't see much area left there, but there may be.
I do want to just point out that this whole area, well, not the whole thing, but there is a swath like in here between the edge of the driveway that goes to the houses by the motel to where the highway garage is. That chunk is currently undeveloped.
The cell tower, that's where the cell tower is, right? Kind of, you can see it. That's where the solar field is. So is it, these are house lots here, I think. Yeah, those are house lots. So there's not very much in there that can be developed. So I really don't, and it's over at our groundwater protection area. So I don't recommend that either being included in the PUD, but that's my recommendation.
So one thing that I would argue, so I think, and I don't know for sure that having this included in the PUD makes sense or not. But when I think through the process, groundwater protection keeps coming up when we talk about the French King District. And I just want to make sure that it's super clear that anything that goes on here is going to be still held to the groundwater protection overlay rules. And oftentimes when you're dealing with open space or wetlands or things like anything that's going to take up land, you want to make it dense so that you don't have things that are sprawling out. So one of the things that the PUD allows is it allows for dense development so that you can push all your buildings together so that you're not having massive hardscape everywhere or buildings everywhere where the water then can't recharge. You're clustering it together and it's maybe denser than you would see in other parts of town, but you're clustering it for a purpose, and all of that purpose is the same. So that's the requirement for a PUD, is that there's an overall, there's a reason for the development, and that's why it's being put together as a whole project. So I think that's one thing that if you're considering groundwater recharge, the PUD allows you to actually squish the development closer together rather than having it be sprawled out over the whole parcel or over multiple parcels.
And the other reason I think, you know, is that area we were trying to, one of the reasons we kept it its own zoning, I think, is to try to keep it more pristine. Maybe you know, Deb, but was that, Jackie said it was more that Frank wanted to have, he didn't want rural, we were going to call it rural residential, but he wanted to be able to do more than that. Is that was Jackie's email to you, I think I read. That was why they created the French King. It was to give more leeway than rural residential to that area that we want to keep pristine. Which would be another reason I don't think you want
that. They were trying to keep it green. But I think too, if Irving is going to grow, we've got to come up with areas where that growth can happen. And I know, like, looking at the French King District right now, there's a restaurant and a hotel. That doesn't mean that that's always going to be there. They could sell, they could want to do something else. And I think we've got to come up with areas where development can happen, but at the same time, we get to control how it happens. And I think that's what this overlay district is doing. And having seen a couple of projects come up that have been in the water protection area, like the gas station, and watching it fail because people were very concerned about that. You know, the library was in the water protection area, so that had to have a special hearing. For myself personally, knowing that those other overlay districts still apply, give me the peace of mind that a giant factory is not going to be able to come in and say, oh, I'm going to set up this toxic waste dump in your water district, because we also, those protections still apply. So the water commissioners would be able to say, you know what, you don't fit the use for our groundwater district. So the answer is no. One thing that's a little deceiving on this map, as Mariah said, we've been working on the zoning. We actually pulled a couple of parcels out of the French King and made them, I believe we turned them into rural residential, if I'm remembering correctly. So we actually shrunk the French King district a little bit. And I know it's hard to show you guys because even her and I are just making a list of what parcels we've been toying with. So it's hard to kind of show you, but if you can see where that 1,000 foot arrow goes across up towards the top of the screen, those two parcels we took out. Because, I'm sorry, just it's the first parcel we took out, isn't it, Mariah? Because that's the one that goes with the green, I can't remember what their name was now.
Yeah, that one's forever green. It's part of the state or something, isn't it now?
So when Deb and I were looking at the composite map our goal was to try to simplify it as best we could. And we're going to have to talk to obviously you all and Jackie about it, and it'll be a longer conversation. But one of the things that we wanted to do was have lines that made a little bit more sense, because right now they seemed really arbitrary. And so this was one of those where we think it was a 200-foot buffer from the river or from the road next to the river, which makes sense in terms of wetlands protection, but not really in terms of zoning. So we thought, can we just have that whole parcel be outside the French King district, or have that whole parcel, have it be one or the other. Don't have half the parcel in, half the parcel out.
I think that's protected land now, I believe. I don't have, Jackie went to the trouble of putting who owned every lot there, so that wouldn't be developable anyhow.
Yeah, we just needed to have another conversation with Jackie
have,
to better understand like kind of how we're allowed to draw those lines, because we just wanted to make sure that our thoughts that we had were all kosher. But that was kind of our intention as we were looking through this was, well, if that's protected land anyways, does the French King district really need to start halfway through that parcel? Can it take a step back and just start with a full parcel?
Right.
But anyways, back to the PUD, if we want to finish that discussion before starting the next.
well, I guess I'd have to, again, I'd like to see just how much land is there available for development. I take put the solar fields on it and look, I don't think there's very much, but
Well, you can't,
maybe
I just want to be very clear that we shouldn't base this off of what's currently there, because those solar fields could be decommissioned someday. The motel could be torn down. And so just be cautious.
I guess I wonder why. Okay.
What? Sorry, did you cut out for a second, or did I cut out?
No, that's okay. I guess I don't come from the same place you do. I don't see it being a good place for a PUD. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I just don't see it. But
okay, I guess I'm just saying I wouldn't, if you're going, it's okay if that's your decision and that's your opinion. I guess I'm just saying I would be cautious about forming that off of what's currently there. It's okay if you decide that you don't think that's an appropriate place for that.
I won't support it. I don't think I'll support it. So if you want to take whatever the majority wants to do, we'll do, but I won't vote for it. It will be none. I would just go with the 3 mill properties and call it a mill overlay district.
Well, and I think that a mill overlay district is a planned unit development district. The mill overlay, if I understood Peggy correctly when she came and spoke with us, mill overlay district is kind of an outdated term. So now it's called the planned unit development district, or PUD, as I like to affectionately call it. And I think, and this is one thing I know, Mike, I struggle with it too. And as I've been working on the maps with Mariah, I find myself, I'll say, oh, that's such and such a property, and that's this. And I think, and it's hard because you have it in your head that's like the solar fields are there, the hotel is there, the this is there. And you kind of almost have to pretend it's a blank slate. Because in theory, if it was to be sold, that's what it could become. And I know that's what I've been struggling with working on the maps with Mariah is I have it such in my head that it's this property or it's that property and it's always going to be that use. And in reality, somebody could decide to sell their property and a business could build, so I'm trying to be, as I work on the maps with her, taking it that step back and just imagining it as a blank slate. And how would we want to zone it and what would we want to have there if there was nothing in existence currently?
But again, the main reason we're trying to do this is to get the Miller's IP mill rezoned, so, and without spot zoning. So I don't recommend doing the French King or the water, the river lots. keep it to the mill uses.
Okay, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna re-show the purpose of the PUD so that, because I know that Brian brought it up, framing in the context of the old mills, and that's how we thought of it. And if we don't think that it's appropriate for other areas, that's fine. So here's kind of the goals or outcomes of it. Encourage flexibility in design through a carefully controlled review process of detailed plans. Promote the reuse of historic structures and the use of multiple story buildings in a campus-like clustering of buildings to maximize the amount of available open space. Encourage a less sprawling form of development, which makes more efficient use of land, requires shorter networks of streets and utilities, which fosters more economical development and less consumption of developable land. Provide an efficient procedure which will ensure appropriate high-quality design and site planning. Promote high-quality coordinated building and site design, which buffers adjacent residential uses and protects scenic and natural features. Maximizes pedestrian circulation within the project and connection to surrounding compatible land uses.
And Mariah, this is taken kind of from Montague's, isn't it? They have this, right?
Yeah, I don't remember if it was like Sunderland or Montague, or I think Peggy had kind of a template that she had used for a couple other towns.
They've had it for quite a long time, and Walter had said at one meeting they haven't used it yet. So it's not something that gets used a lot either. Once it goes in, I don't believe so.
Well, usually it would be for like one big cluster. Like, so for them, it's probably the Strathmore. You know, it would be if someone bought the Strathmore and wanted to do one giant complex or something like that, or, you know, wherever. Because it's really, you're only going to use it for a handful of developments because the development will be really big.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So I spoke what I thought anyhow. So what's next? Are we? Do you want to stay on this longer, or do you want to? I think I'm okay with all the, you know, the verbiage that Peggy presented. It's just what parts of the town we want to include in it that I have the issue with right now.
Do you want to take a vote now of which, or, you know, make a motion of which parcels to include, or do you guys want to wait until another meeting?
I would ask
No,
that we wait till
I'm
we
not
have the
gonna.
maps done. Because I think when the maps are done, from what we've been working on, Mariah, the maps kind of change the topography of the PUD a little bit.
I'm just wondering how you can change the maps and get those approved and then get the PUDs. Who has to approve the map changes?
The town
When
does.
can
So
that
what we
happen?
would do is once we've determined that we have a package, so to speak, for the zoning bylaws, whatever changes we've made, we would host a public meeting and ask for feedback, ideally like in March. And then take any feedback that we receive from residents, go through, incorporate it if we feel it should be, or not incorporate it if we feel it doesn't work. And then we would present and everything gets voted on at town meeting. The residents have to approve all the changes.
I think what Deb was saying is we haven't gotten to the part of the agenda where we worked on what we thought the zoning should look like. So I think she was just saying, should we look at that first? And then maybe the next meeting, you guys vote on the PUD after you've looked at the actual zoning adjustments.
Changes you've made, okay.
Yeah.
Or the changes you're proposing. I'm just worried that we're basing it on proposals that may not even get voted in.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, the French King District, unless we totally eliminate it, which that's not anything Deb and I worked on, it's going to be there or it's not. So realistically, I think the sentiment of having the PUD there or not, the boundaries of it can change, but I think whether we want it in that area is going to be the main question. So whether you want to keep talking about that tonight or wait until another meeting, I think that's kind of the heart of it.
And I think too, one thing to keep in mind with the PUD is, so right now, the way the French King is zoned, stuff could go there. We may want to have a little bit more of a say. Some of those parcels are pretty big. If they were to get sold, putting in a PUD helps the town have a bit more control of what could or could not eventually be developed there. Because as it stands right now, that district is actually just about as, I don't know what the right word is, open, so to speak, as our CV district. I mean, there, what you can and cannot do with permit or special permit and stuff like that, the French King is a pretty non-restrictive district. Right. So by having the PUD in the French King, that actually gives us a bit more control.
Well, I think, didn't we open it up a little bit even more or not?
Let's see. I don't think we did. I don't think we made a lot of changes to that one.
We didn't. Well, there isn't a ton to begin with. I think that's part of why we took out the word commercial, because it's really not a commercial district. It's something in between CV and VR/RR. Like it's kind of an in-between allowance.
I think, yeah, Jackie's email said that they wanted to make it RR, and they created French King as a compromise. I believe that's what her email said. So,
and our definition for the French King was to allow for commercial activity limited in nature due to the, and then I didn't finish my sentence. So
none of us could come up with what that district is really supposed to be.
Yeah. I guess I kind of like to keep it the way it is, but we can go on to let's go on in the agenda. I don't think we're going to move any further on this today. Okay, the next one, is Jake back yet?
Yes, he is here, and it looks like he has joined.
This was how to change wireless communication overlay district. Jackie had brought it up and before she left and said it's kind of outdated. People aren't using cell towers anymore, and I guess we'd like to make it personally that everybody can get cell coverage in Irving and hooked up to the internet if possible through wireless. But I asked Jake if maybe he could update us on what he recommends. I don't have much knowledge on this.
Hear me okay?
Are you?
Yes.
I can hear you, Jake. I just barely.
Okay. So I didn't get much time to look into wireless overlays. I'm not familiar with them. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot to offer. I believe, and Brian can help if he's still here, confirm that. In terms of, I think at one point it said something about internet access. I believe our Comcast franchise agreement extended that to every house in town. I believe every house is now served. Not that that means everyone wants that for service, but that it is available.
That's good.
In terms of the wireless overlays, cell towers have their place still. I mean, everybody's using mobile devices, and a lot of those devices are now using cellular internet and all of those sorts of things. So I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon, especially as you hear things about 5G and everybody's upgrading networks and stuff like that. But some of the more modern options that you see, like I think what GSET did in Greenfield and things like that, hanging smaller antennas off of poles and existing utility infrastructure is probably something that the planning board wants to look at and understand if it's allowed and how to ensure that it's at least an option for the town. But not having any experience or knowledge on those, my recommendation would be maybe for one of the planning board members to reach out to maybe Greenfield, where they have that infrastructure in place already and actually did it themselves, and understand maybe from their planning board or some of their planning members what zoning recommendations they might have that allows for or encourages that type of build out from a public or private party.
Well, thanks, Brian. So you'd recommend looking at Greenfield? Okay.
Yeah, I would recommend reaching out to their planning team and understanding, what did they do or what does theirs look like, and what recommendations would they have since they have that infrastructure. There's other towns, I think Burlington has one. Wakefield has one, a wireless, overlay district. So just looking at some others, and especially if they already have some of the more modern wireless infrastructure in place, they might be a good towns to use to evaluate how to update ours if we wish to. Unfortunately, I don't bring any expertise about that.
Is that something we think we could do for this year, or is that something that we can put off until next year? I guess is it a high priority to do that? That's my question. Anybody?
You've had it this far.
Yeah, I think given that it's going to be 2021 here in a few, probably for next year, definitely.
Well, right, but fiscal year, not calendar year, because we're talking about
Oh.
annual meeting.
Okay, so you're talking
But
like May to May or something?
well, so annual town meeting will be in late spring. And so like Deb was saying, we kind of have to have these changes ready for March, which is really only 2 meetings away, 2 or 3.
March, yeah.
And so I think you would be okay to wait. I think that this is something that you could work on for, a handful of months, and that can be your next project.
Next year, yeah, I'd vote to table that until next year, if that's okay with.
Sure. Sounds good. And if you guys don't mind, I'll volunteer to call Greenfield Planning Board.
Okay.
Perfect.
Does anybody know the name of that at all, or I could just cold call?
Robert.
I can. Well.
I can't think of his last name. Is the chair. You can find it online. They have all their emails and everything.
Okay. Yeah, online. Okay, great. I'll do that. So I just look up Greenfield Planning Board members, right, or something?
Yeah, on the Greenfield City website, if you can go to the planning board page, and they should have like a contact us thing.
Okay. Sure, I'll do that.
Okay. Well, with Jake, and it's nice to have Jake and Brian with us, and I wondered if maybe we could just quickly review the changes we've proposed already, Mariah. If maybe you've already reviewed it with them, if you have that, but if not, could we go like the purpose section and then the zoning? Here, oh yeah. So I can't quite read it on mine. My eyes aren't that good. Here we go. So we kept the purpose pretty much the same as it was, and then we just added a few sentences. And the purpose of this bylaws are the purposes of this bylaw are to plan for orderly growth of town of Irving, to promote the prosperity and well-being of inhabitants while retaining the rural character of the town, to conserve the value of the land and buildings and prevent blight, to protect natural resources and prevent pollution of the environment, to encourage the appropriate use of land throughout the town, to mitigate and reverse the effects of climate change, to encourage multimodal transportation, to protect public health safety, to prevent overcrowding and undue concentration of population, while providing housing guidelines appropriate for residents of all income levels, to embrace and encourage racial, cultural, and generational and social economic diversity, to support the development of adequate municipal services consistent with managed growth of the town, to maintain the scenic characteristics of the area as an attraction for recreational and tourist activities, and to preserve the historical and cultural resources in accordance with the provisions of MGL Chapter 48 and Article 89 of the amendments to the Massachusetts Constitution. And I don't know, that sounds pretty good after I read it through. Brian or Jake, do you have any comments on that, the changes we made?
I think they sound good. Sounds like a good mission and purpose statement.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the only place we could really have a mission statement. We thought it was pretty important to have one. So the changes we do, we can go back and make sure it stands up against this. So thank you. You want to, Mariah, could you lead us through the proposed changes in the tables we were doing?
Yeah, unless you want me to, I'm not going to read off all of them just because it'll be a while. But
Okay.
we added definitions of the districts because we didn't actually have definitions for what the purpose of those districts were, which clearly my sentence that stopped, we need to actually finish those definitions. But it has the abbreviation that's on the map, it has the district name, then it has a statement of purpose. And then the same with the overlay. And then
Interrupt you for a moment. I appreciate you going through it, but I don't know if it's time well spent by the planning board, because I'm sure the Board of Selectmen as a whole is going to want to understand what changes you're proposing when the planning board is ready to, kind of present the whole
Okay.
scope
All
of
right.
changes that you want to present for town meeting. So while I appreciate you doing it while I'm here, I don't want everyone to have to go through it, multiple times, and I'm sure the rest of the board would like to see it. And if we have a draft to review, it's probably better than I can offer input just, watching it scroll by on the screen here. So.
Okay. Could you send a draft to us of where we are now, Mariah, with this, if possible?
well, I think what Jake's saying is that, and feel free to correct me, Jake, if I'm misinterpreting, but that we should finish our draft and then it has to go in front of them anyways before it gets put
Right.
to town meeting. And so rather than having them look at it multiple times, we should
Right.
just finish the planning board draft and then give the proposal to them.
I'm just asking if I can get a copy of the draft, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said to send it to him. Yes, absolutely. I can send it to you.
No,
Yes, I'll put that on
and
my
the rest
list.
of the plan. Okay.
That would be
But
great.
basically, we tried to make it a little more uniform across Central Village and rural residential and I think we did good. So, okay, well, we won't waste time on that. And then the next one was on the agenda was, I believe, to go over update by Deb on the streets and what you were thinking there.
So we've been working for a couple of meetings now to redo the zoning. And I'm hard pressed for how to describe it the best because it's mapped. So I feel like it's difficult to show you guys what we've done. Basically what we've tried to do is look at all of our zoning. So the CV, the VR, the rural residential, and the French King, and just make sure, does the boundaries it currently have still make sense? Are there parcels that maybe are in a district that we don't really want to have in a district? Are there parcels, like we found one parcel today that is zoned in 3 different districts? So it's kind of just going through, cleaning some of that stuff up, and just kind of making sure that where we have uses truly makes sense for the areas that they are. So we have done a bunch of changes, nothing too dramatic. You know, we haven't really moved anything. We've kind of cleaned up boundary lines, maybe taken a parcel out of one or added a parcel to another. Mariah was going to look into seeing if we could potentially maybe get a draft map to show you guys at the next meeting. I think that would make a lot more sense. And if she can't, I have volunteered to go through and color one of our existing maps so we can actually show you guys, because we could give you a list of properties that we've.
Maybe one of some
like,
his
where we have
daughters
changed.
could do it.
Yeah, I can show you guys much. So,
Yes.
we'll either have a draft for you or I will color something for you for the next meeting if you're good with that.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds great.
the general gist of it was just like, you can see on here that CV, it's like halfway through a lot of these parcels. And so a lot of what we did was we just tried to define the edges a little better, because right now they're all based off of feet from certain places, which I understand why they did that in a lot of spots, but we were hoping that we could really look more at the actual parcels and figure out, okay, like, does it make sense to have CV stop where it does? Like, I think one of the proposals we had was to include the library senior center parcels in CV. Right now it stops before that. That doesn't seem to make sense to us. It seems like that district should extend through those parcels. And like River Road, how we had talked previously about how one side was VR and one side was rural residential. Yeah, just kind of looking at the edges mostly. In this area, we decided that it was, this was just kind of messy, and that I think we ultimately ended up deciding our kind of go-to rule was if it's touching Route 2, it should be CV in this area. And then this whole section of houses is on Pleasant Street, but is zoned CV. So I think we changed that to VR.
Yeah.
And it was like the same thing all the way down. Like, it makes sense for parcels that are right on Route 2 to be CV. But then there's like this whole residential neighborhood back here where some of the residential lots are zoned CV and some of them aren't. And we felt like that didn't make sense.
Right. And it can be really confusing, as Mariah and I found just trying to read through some of this stuff. Some of it, when you look at our use table, so if you have a property that's zoned in 2 different districts, it literally boils down to what you want to do on your property. And then you have to follow the more restrictive zoning for the site. So it kind of just made sense to look at the parcel and say, you know, the bulk of this parcel is in CV. So let's be real, the use of it is going to be a CV use. Let's just make the entire thing CV. I think the most dramatic changes we're suggesting are actually down on my end of town, which will be near the town hall, Church Street, and North Street. And that was just a matter of really looking at things and suggesting that we actually extend the CV district a bit.
That was when I think Jackie had said people were worried about industry spreading up North Street, wasn't it? Or up by Swamp Road or something.
Yeah, up by I think it's up at the end on Swamp Road, and then way up on North Street, I think she said there used to be a pallet shop. And
Yeah.
which I found this fascinating in her email. If you didn't have a town utility, but you already had a business next to you, you could then become a business. So I thought that was very interesting and just seemed like a really odd way to do things, but so I can understand some of that, but I just think, again, kind of looking at things as Mariah is teaching me I need to as a blank slate, and where would you potentially want things to go? We're going to kind of propose that North and Church become all CV up until where they meet. And then it turns into the, North going up over the mountain. Kind of where her cursor is, that little triangle. We're going to suggest all become Central Village, except Flag Hill, that'll stay VR.
Yeah, just inside this little triangle. One of the things that was really important that we found out when we talked to Jackie was that the zoning use, even if we change something on this map, if a business is currently using that, or there's a house there, or whatever the current use of a parcel is, they can stay legally non-conforming if we change the zoning, unless they stop using the parcel for that purpose for 24 months. So unless someone abandons their business or property for 2 years, they're able to keep doing what they're doing, which we felt was really important to know, that if it's a continuous use, it's not going to be affected by this. It would just be either something that's not currently happening there, or if someone abandoned a current use and started something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a lot of what we did on this side of town was, again, like the Irving State Forest parcels are gigantic, and there's like chunks of it that are VR and chunks of it that are over residential and chunks of it that are CV. So we tried to just, we're going to propose that we stick to this boundary line for VR all the way down and across. And even though this is part of the Irving State Forest right here, that the VR just goes along this boundary, because right now it doesn't make sense to have VR in the middle of the state forest.
Right.
Yeah, so those were really the biggest things. We did talk a lot about the 1,000-foot setback. We think that 1,000 feet is a lot over there. It doesn't look like a lot because these parcels are gigantic, but I mean, that's like the whole Prospect Street Extension neighborhood. And so I think we did talk about maybe shortening that some. You can see this is where Route 2 used to go through. And we were also just curious, and we were going to ask Jackie if she knew why rural residential came down here on this side, but then it was on either side of it. So we had some questions. Deb and I are going to follow back up with Jackie, and like we said, see how much it would cost to get a draft map done.
Yeah.
I mean, that CV, I'm sorry, could you go back across from the paper mill? That was the, where we were gonna put the planned unit development, isn't it?
Right.
What Mariah and I were thinking for that, Mike, is so the planned unit development, instead of going all the way back across the entire parcel, and again, I'm using hands, which you guys can't see, we would have the PUD would only go as far as the CV district goes. So kind of where Mariah is tracing her cursor right now, that would be the PUD. So we would stop it within that zone, so it would not continue.
Correct, but I just heard you saying 1,000 feet was too much, so you can't, I think you want to leave that 1,000 feet there for PUD, don't you?
Well, that was one of the things we talked about. That's kind of why we said the mill overlay district needs to work on top of the zoning. Because if we propose, say this becomes 750 feet instead of 1,000, we wouldn't want the PUD to go 1,000 and have the CV only go 750.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I would think you'd want to keep it 1,000 as big as you can for the PUD. in that, so I guess I see, it's gonna go against what you want to do, at least a little bit, you know, if you want to reduce it, I don't know. It's a
I don't think either of
compromise,
us
but,
felt super strongly about it. It was just 1,000 feet is a lot. And so
It is, but I can
sort of
also, I can see where Mike's going with the 1,000 feet for the PUD. So it's one of those, I can totally see both sides of that, why you would want to reduce it. But I can also see if you're going to make it the PUD, why you might want to have it be that 1,000 feet.
yeah, I feel similarly. I think it could happen either way.
okay, well, hopefully you can get a draft so we can see it next time.
If
We'll
not,
have
my
some-
inner
I'm looking
6-year-old
forward to
will
your,
break out the colored pencils and get to town.
all right. Anything else on this? Okay, I think I had, okay, new business, Brian, if you're still here, could you update us on the floodplain? I had sent you that information, I guess, a few weeks ago, and
I can.
I don't know what,
Brian, feel free to chime in because Brian was on the call too. But I set up a meeting with Joy DePro.
Sounds
Who
right.
is
Yeah.
from, what was that?
So that sounds right.
Oh, there was just like a voice of God coming out of my computer. We spoke with Joy this morning. She was incredibly helpful. She had posted to, I'm part of a town planner listserv, and she had posted saying that if any towns needed help to reach out. And so she was kind enough to meet with us this morning before we had this meeting so that we could kind of get some of our questions answered. I will say I am extremely relieved after talking to her because I didn't quite understand. I had read through this, but didn't quite understand the extent of it. And she assuaged my fears that it was not going to be impossible or scary. And basically, section 2 is the language. So she was able to tell us that basically we currently have a floodplain district in our zoning. So this would replace that language. And she told us that ours is community-based. These are maps. So the firm, the FBFM, and the FIS are maps and insurance information or studies. And so she told us that we are an A because you pick either one. And then we have to plug in dates. And so she's going to get back to us with which dates our maps were last updated. And we found out that FEMA is going to be updating our maps to digital versions in 2022 because we're the only county left in Massachusetts that doesn't have digital maps. So go Franklin County. Then we'll have to just stick in where our maps are held on file. So we would just pick one of these. I don't know if you can see this very well, but you would just pick, like, is it on file with the planning board or the town clerk or whoever? All of this is.
where are they now?
What was that?
Do we know where are the maps now? Are they,
I need to look into that, Mike. This is Brian. I'll look into that. It should be with the town clerk, but I'm going to double check.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Then we just plug in our names in a lot of these. And then again, we would choose option A for variances to the building code, which just means that it's the state building code. Yeah, and then basically the only part that we have left to fill in is the local enforcement. So we would, basically we have to appoint the Board of Selectmen. So hold on. The planning board would make a recommendation to the to the Board of Selectmen who they think should be the floodplain manager. And I was concerned that the floodplain manager was also the enforcement officer, but those are actually two different roles. So the floodplain manager is the person who FEMA calls if they have a question. So whether it's in the middle of a disaster, whether it's next week, whether it's whenever, FEMA just needs a point person to call and say, we have a question about your floodplain bylaw or the insurance information or the maps or whatever they might have a question on. That's their point person. And that person just needs to be able to know the right people to talk to get answers for questions. They need to know kind of what's going on in town. They don't have to have any kind of like special training. It's great if they do, but they don't have to be like a trained floodplain specialist or anything like that. She did recommend that we don't make it emergency management director, because if FEMA does have to contact us during an emergency, the emergency management director is already going to have their hands full, so it should be a different person. So she said it could be the planner, it could be the head of the Conservation Commission, it could be the head of the planning board, it could be the town clerk, whoever it needs to be. The enforcement officer is, in our case, the building inspector, the Conservation Commission, and potentially the planning board in some cases. We would just have to go in and fill in the different sections of enforcement. And so I would be able to do that with you all, with Brian, with the Conservation Commission. And we would basically just lay out, like, the Conservation Commission enforces the wetlands bylaws or Wetlands Protection Act. You know, the building inspector enforces the state building code as well as the zoning bylaws. So it's just laying out who enforces what parts of this. And then we fill all this information in and we can send it to Joy and she'll look it over and she'll tell us if she thinks we've done anything wrong or if anything's missing. And she said that we could send her our current flood protection overlay, and she would compare the two and tell us if we thought anything important was missing that like was in our current one that wouldn't be in the new one. So it's not as intense as we thought. And then our council would look it over, obviously, because they look over anything that goes to town meeting. But this is all legal language that has already, it's from the federal level, brought down to the state level, brought down to the municipal level. That was a lot, sorry.
Is a plan to have this in place for the town meeting to vote on? Is that, this is gonna go on, or this will be in March, we have to present this, is that the plan? I mean,
Yeah,
for this
Brian,
year, right?
Brian, did you feel like I felt like it was totally feasible to have this done for the annual town meeting, did you?
I would say yes, and Mike, to your question, that I think that's what the state is asking us. They're asking all the towns to try to adopt this at their annual town meeting. This has to go back. This goes back to the FEMA requirements. One note that she did make, and Mariah sort of alluded to this, they are about to do a project to update some maps slightly. There's a section, and I can't remember which number, maybe it was number 2 on here, that actually lists out, there's placeholders for map dates. Is it? Thank you for
Right.
Yeah, I
scrolling.
think it's number 2. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll see there's like little in parentheses the FIS date. So Joy is going to work with her colleague Eric Carlson to obtain those dates for us. It looks like our dates for Irving date back to 1982, and it looks like they haven't been updated since 1982. But so we put this bylaw forward. It's conceivable in 2 years FEMA will have updated the maps, given them new dates, and we will have to go back and amend this bylaw one more time to update those dates. And this is all important for the FEMA insurance and flood management system. So there's other things that get tied to this. So knowing that this language is actually pretty boilerplate coming from the feds down through the state, there's very little Irving specific language that has to go in here other than the things that are specific, the enforcement, the dates of our maps, everything else is pretty boilerplate. So unless the planning board has large concerns about that, I think this one's more of a replace what we currently have with this new language that FEMA's asking us to adopt.
I thought we had to keep what we currently had too. That was my understanding from the seminar I went to. And then this was additions to it. I'm wrong there?
Well, it can be. So depending on what we have, like we can add more onto this. And that's what Joy said that she would do, is she would review ours in comparison to this. And she could tell us like what is a duplication and what would be like added on top of this and what would be totally negated.
That's good. That's what I need. Somebody needs to go through it like that by point. And if she's willing to do it, that's great. So are you going to work with her, Mariah, to do that? Is that your plan?
I think I'll probably do a draft, and I can do a draft, and maybe Brian and I can look at the last part about enforcement, and then I don't know. Do you want me to send it? Do you guys all want to review it before I send it to her, or do you want me to just work with her to try to get a draft, and then you guys can review all of that?
I'm
I
good,
think
Mariah.
I'm good too. I think you have to send her what we have though, because I believe I was on the planning board when we did that, and I don't think we adopted everything that we were supposed to. And so there could be some things missing in there. I don't remember the detail, but
What we
Okay,
can do, Mike, is take the existing language in our bylaw, the information that they're asking you all to adopt in this model, and do a track change version of what would be replaced, so that you all can see what would be coming out and what would be staying, and give that version to Joy to confirm that all the key parts are in there, and then that way, when you all review it again, you can see what you're specifically talking about removing and adding. Would that be helpful?
yeah, that would be one. That's what I think needs to be done. Yeah, that would be great. So
Okay.
I don't know if a month is enough time to have that done by.
Yeah, I don't think, realistically, I don't think this is going to take very long. I think it's going to be like we do it and then we have to like wait for feedback. You know, like it'll be like a start and a stop kind of thing. So I can try to have a draft net ready for the next meeting, and if we don't, we don't. But I'm going to aim for that, I think.
Yeah, I guess getting back to Brian's point, the draft will go out to Joy along with the current. That's what you're saying. You'll have a draft ready to send to Joy in a month. Is that kind of what we're thinking?
Oh, I think it'll be ready. Wait, like I can do this tomorrow probably, or maybe not tomorrow, but you know, in the next week or so. And then hopefully we'll have something back to you guys next month.
Right.
Okay. Good. No, that would be wonderful. That's more than what I could expect. So, all right. So next month we'll have a draft hopefully to review. Okay. And then who is going to be, we don't know who the floodplain manager is right yet, right? You said it could be the Conservation Commission, it could be the Planning Board, it could be you, it could be a lot of.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you have thoughts?
I do, and Joyce sort of alluded to this. It could be any official, and the planning board could work with the select board to identify an official. What I would suggest is that we try to work through existing structures, and if there's not an opposition from our zoning official, which is the building commissioner, I would argue that it may make sense to go with that proposal. One, because any project that's going to come through for a building permit or a site plan review is going to eventually cross the building inspector's desk. And a lot of the requirements for the flood mitigation has to do with the building code. So you're basically tapping one resource for both purposes. The last reason I would suggest the building commissioner is that by statute, the commissioner has enforcement authority already in their position. There's very few positions that have those by statute. And so it's a stronger toolbox than us creating a local bylaw appointing another official. So the other option that Mariah suggested was maybe the Conservation Commission. Again, they have enforcement authorities in certain regards, because they're enforcing the Wetlands Protection Act. We don't have a local wetlands bylaw, and I think that's probably why the floodplain bylaw exists in your zoning bylaw.
Right, well, I think from the seminar, I said it's nice to have it all in one place too, so that,
Right.
you know, it could be spread out over 10 different documents, which would be a nightmare to try to find, so.
Absolutely. No, that's a good point. So just to close the loop on that, I'm going to reach out to the FRCOG, where our building commissioner is employed through, and have a conversation with them to make sure that there wouldn't be an opposition with that proposal, and I can report back to you all.
Okay, thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Okay, how about, Brian, next one is you too. How many people responded to your ads?
Unfortunately, nobody. I have a vacancy on your board, the not conservation, on the school committee, and on the board of library trustees. And so we still have all of those vacancies after we advertise. We advertised for about a month and a half. So we're going to try one more time. But what I would say is, if this next attempt for maybe a deadline in January doesn't work, it's too close to the annual election after that to fill the seat. So we would just rely on the town clerk's process when he seeks nominations for elected officials. So we'll give it one more go, but after that, we're probably going to have to wait and see if somebody comes to the annual election process instead.
Mariah mentioned maybe using Facebook to go for a younger, well, a different, you didn't say younger, you said a different type
We
of
sent
person.
Take what I can get.
We absolutely can continue to use social media. We posted it on the town website. We posted it on Facebook. We shared it with the newspapers as a news brief to both the Recorder and the Montague Reporter. We'll continue to do those things.
You need to go on TikTok.
You don't want me on TikTok.
Make a little ad for us.
Oh, no. I think we should find get the TikTok dance and have Mike do it, holding a sign saying, "We need volunteers for planning."
Yes. Mike will be hip on TikTok. He'll be like a sensation.
Yeah, you'll get everybody doing that.
Should I make that a motion?
I just want, the next one on here was something I'd like to make sure we get to is section 6.1 and 6.2 is special permits and site plan reviews, and that's the special permit was the one we wanted to extend the time on, I think, for major projects, and then the site plan review is where we need to include all the things that we think are good ideas, and I just want to make sure we get to those before March. So we've got a lot of stuff to cover, but you know, I guess I'd like to go through that maybe at the next meeting. Some of the things we're talking about were like for solar projects, making when they put pollinator type of plants in afterwards around the border, or I think Native American surveys in areas that have you know, historical. And then Mariah mentioned the I can't remember how you say it, but using more like rocks for drainage. What's the right word for that?
Green infrastructure.
Yeah. So I mean,
Mike-
I think everybody should bring in what they think's important that we've left out of some of these. And if you can look through those sections before the next meeting.
That was actually going to be one of my questions tonight. I think, we only have really a couple more meetings before you kind of have to have your package ready of kind of what proposals you want to make. And it looks like so far we've got the purpose that we changed. Oh God, I'm so zoomed in. Everything takes 10 million years to scroll. We've got the purpose, we've got the use table. And I think, section 4 is really long. So I think if everyone could just kind of look at what other things in section 4 we think are urgent to change. Like I think signage is in here. And I know that was one of the things that there were some concerns about. So if we want to change something like signage or parking requirements or things like that, maybe section 4 and the section 6.1, 6.2 are kind of the things that you all focus on getting ready for the next annual town meeting. And then after that, you can look at the wireless thing and you can kind of make your way through the whole bylaw section by section.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So finish section 4, everybody read through the rest of section 4 and 6.1 and 6.2 and have some ideas for the next meeting.
And could we just add, because I don't think it would be a ton, I know Peggy had brought it to us and I kind of feel like it's just left out there in the universe. The marijuana delivery bylaw, could we get something on the books for that too? Because we have nothing right now. And I know one is opening in Miller's. And so I would just like to see us have something. And so maybe if we focus, Mariah and I will finish taking the maps, the zoning and the maps. And then if we finish chapter 4 and Mike, your parts of 6 and the marijuana delivery service.
Yeah, there
We
was
want one?
there was a lot in there that she changed other than just that, right?
Yeah, do you want me to resend out her recommendations so that everyone can look them over?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
could you, Mariah?
good. Yes. I need to review that again. It's been a while.
I can do that.
I did talk to Moonlight. He's doing a little better, but he's still not ready to come back yet. So, and I did get him a gift certificate for Thanksgiving. So I guess they
Oh.
appreciate that pretty much.
That's nice.
It's not going as good as I had hoped. So, what else we get on the agenda? Do we have anything else?
I think just setting the next meeting date.
Okay. I didn't look. Martin Luther King is in January, sometime around then. What's the third Thursday in January?
It
That's
would
the
be the 21st.
And when's Martin Luther King? Is that
It's that Monday. It's the 18th.
the 18th? Okay, so that shouldn't be an issue then, right, for people?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
It's good.
Okay. All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting if there's no more new business. 8:32.
I will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we
Aye.
lose Sunhee?
Nope. I'm
Okay.
aye.
We need to vote.
Sorry.
All
Got it.
right. Well, thanks everybody for taking their time out to join us. Brian and Jake especially appreciate it. And hopefully everyone has a safe Christmas.
Same to you
Yes,
all.
you too. Thank you.
Thanks. Happy
Merry
holidays,
Christmas.
everybody.
Happy holidays.
holidays.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, good
Take
night.
care. Bye.